Artist Susan Grace wanted to add a creative studio space to her traditional home. What she ended up with was this light-filled retreat that was all she wanted and more. I'm Lori Carson, and this is Home and Away. Susan, this is a considerable addition to your home. What started out as just a little addition above the garage really mushroomed into, I think, about 1,700 square feet total.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Yes. Our original plan was just to transform this space above the garage because it wasn't being used except as storage, and it seemed like that would be a reasonable place for me to have a studio next to the house and would give me more space than what I'd been using. The only problem was I wanted flat walls. I wanted 9 feet tall flat walls, and that would require taking the entire roof off, going up, maybe higher than the rest of the house. But I didn't know of any other way to do it to get the kind of wall space that I needed. And then when we talked to Eric and Matt, the very first thing they brought up was, why don't you just leave it as it is? Because it's a really big deal to take the roof off a house. And it was a fine roof. There was no problem with it. And leave it alone. Don't touch anything except put in new floor. And then just build out the back.
It just didn't make sense to Matt and I to go to the extreme to do that, to make that space usable. So we saw it as an opportunity to use that space above the garage as part of the studio, and then add on an additional space that accommodates the heights that she needed, and then incorporated the footprint of a screened-in porch, which was also part of her program.
That screened-in porch is what made the sense to go ahead and add on, because we'd have to already do the footings and everything for the screened-in porch. So we figured instead of tearing the roof off and raising it, the money was better spent adding a floor above that screened-in porch.
I've been painting forever. I've been showing since 1994.
Wow.
And wherever we lived, I just always had a spare bedroom or a space in the basement, whatever. So I would just make do. And the living room worked really well for a long time, but then the work started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I could never see it. I could paint in it, but I couldn't step back and see what it looked like all together until it went out of the house into a gallery space, and then sometimes it was a big surprise, oh, that's what it looks like.
Wow.
And so the need to have more space became increasingly important. I needed really good light. I wanted a lot of natural light, and I wanted good light for when I work by night.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I know you mentioned that as being crucial to any artist, because you do want the combination of natural light, ambient light, task lighting,
yes.
A lot of different requirements as far as light's concerned. And all of that's been accomplished here. Talk
yes.
a little bit about the lighting in this space.
Yes, I have really good north light, which is fantastic for an artist, because the north light doesn't change. It stays pretty much the same throughout the day. I have north light on these two sides, and then I have southern light, but it's up high. Southern light can be a problem, but it's up high, so it's not reflecting off the canvases. The light that focuses on the work, we thought a lot about that. I wanted really heavy duty, intense light, but I didn't want it to form hot spots. So we worked a lot with Grant from ES Lighting to create a kind of all over, even sort of lighting. I'm very pleased with that. And then as things evolved, my husband decided he also would like to use the space. He likes to cook, and he likes to entertain, and he likes to entertain fairly large groups of people. So then we started thinking about ambient light, because the task lighting would not be good if you have a bunch of people over
Sure.
and you have this harsh light focused
Glaring,
on them,
right.
glaring in their face. So then we added ambient lighting, which is all those 3 globes softly glowing up there, and then various places in the space have just ambient light for that.
And that space is actually one space in here that I feel really looks like a museum almost, just with the white walls, the white trim, and the punch window openings. Granted, it's fairly small, but there are certain angles in there that I think the light just works very nicely and makes the space what it is.
It's gorgeous. Now, I know one of the things that you said was important to you, especially in a space this big and an addition this big, is that the space be multifunctional.
Yes.
And you've really accomplished that. The space behind me, which is primarily a work area, even the furniture, which is beautiful.
Yes.
At Struct, Restruct, I know Matt Jones did a lot of these pieces for you.
Yes.
Describe how the multifunctional furnishings as well as the multifunctional space works for a lot of your needs.
Yes, that worked out well. That's not something we planned from the beginning, but as we got farther along in this project and saw it wasn't just going to be a functional space, it was actually going to be a very beautiful, unique, artistic space, we wanted to maximize its use as much as possible. So making it both an area for me to work in, to show in, to have clients come over and look at work, as well as a place for my husband to entertain and have large groups of people come over. It all worked out beautifully for everything to happen in a very seamless kind of way.
Our thought process evolves, and our ideas, our minds are full of ideas, and we're not bashful about expressing them to anyone, and those ideas lead us into our design process, and sketches, drawings, working drawings, and then throughout the actual construction.
One other thing that seems a signature of your work, and I know we've talked to you both before in previous shows, you really pay good attention to repurposed materials. That's a really big part of what you do. Where does that come from?
Other than being kind of a green thing, which most people are aware of, the materials usually have so much character that you just can't get otherwise. And so, that it's just kind of a priceless thing that age does to wood or whatever it might be.
The flooring, let's go first here because it's absolutely beautiful and has the character you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a sheathing off of a kind of probably Victorian era house, which is really kind of a chore to come up with this much material for the whole floor, but we managed to do that. And we were thinking wide plank initially just because the rest of the house, being kind of traditional, has wide plank flooring, kind of stained, but we thought, we've got some wide boards that already have all the kind of stain and character, and so it would in a way tie to the wide plank of the original house, but maybe be a little bit richer. You
really incorporated, working with Struct Restruct, some really cost-saving components to this. I'm thinking of primarily the rafters that we're seeing in this exposed rafters were repurposed from existing space, right? Yes, that's right. From the very beginning, I told them I was very anxious about budget. So at every step, as this all organically evolved, this whole project, we talked about where can we save money, what kind of look will we get, where might we want to spend a bit more money, and what kind of look will that be? They didn't just say there's one way to do it. We really looked at various ways at every step. So we just got to save the wood, save a lot of money. The black works well. It's not a high glossy sheen because they didn't want to disguise it and say, oh yes, we're trying to pass this off as really excellent wood. No, it is what it is. It's part of its charm. It goes with the space. It integrates well. I'm fascinated by the collaborative effort that really took off here because really it was a combination of what you needed and wanted with some very good insights from your partners in this project. How important is it to find the right fit when it comes to the people you're working with in terms of constructing the space? It's very important. I didn't expect that we would talk so much. I thought I'd just tell them, build me a great big cube, paint it white, I'd go away and don't go over budget. But I'm here, right? I'm living in the house. There was a period where I couldn't really work because we had to move everything into the living room. I had nothing to do. So I became interested and they were very patient and they seemed to want to talk to me as well. So I continued talking to them and they would come up with ideas and I was interested, and then I'd talk to my husband and he was interested, and we would just kick ideas around. And a lot of times we just told them, we want you to do what you think is right for the space, because
we trusted them. The trust didn't come at the beginning, and they led us off into some areas that we wouldn't have gone to from the beginning, like titanium wall, which we will look at later, or just really contemporary elements. But as we continued with the project, we knew that we could say, if you think this is a good look, and if this is within our budget, then we want to do it, and we became more comfortable saying so.
Coming up next, a yoga space and a commercial element that's making a big impact in residential design. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Susan, I know there's a space that your husband actually occupies, a nice little perch up above that gallery space.
Yes.
Talk about that space.
Well, as we were saying before, we wanted to make the most use of this entire space that we could. And I'm here all the time, but sometimes my husband wants to hang out. So he has actually 3 places where he's allowed to hang out, and it doesn't interfere with my work. He has his own little loft where he can go and work or read or just sit there and be quiet. And he also has this corner area where Matt made him a sofa where he can read or take a nap as he likes. And then we have a little yoga studio, which evolved at the end, where we both can work too.
I talked earlier about the collaborative effort. I know that you've got a sink in this space, and that's something you didn't even want. I can't imagine an artist studio without a sink, but you had to be talked into that, and now you're glad you have it.
I did. I don't know quite what was my issue with that. I think all along I kept thinking of, what do I really need? What do I really want? What can I do without? That was always continually in my mind. But this was part of the ductwork, this form, this shape anyway. So there it is. That's how we got heat up and moved all through. So might as well do something with it. And they said this would be a great place to put a little studio sink. Not going to cost very much because this shape, the form is already there. And then after I found out how it wasn't a big deal, I started to like the idea. Now I can't imagine doing without it. It's so, because I go there all the time, clean brushes, clean things, go back. It doesn't interrupt my workflow this way.
I know another important part of this design was making a cohesive look from a more modern space, the addition,
Yes.
to a more traditional space that was your existing home.
Yes.
And that is fused beautifully by this brand new entry to your home that is essentially, from what I understand, a hallway of glass that you can look from one side to the other. Talk a little bit about that new space.
Yes, the existing house is colonial style, very different. This space originally I thought would be like the old house, kind of cabin in the woods sort of feel. But as things went along, I got to liking more and more a contemporary look, lots of glass, lots of light coming in, really minimalist.
The space, you know, is a pretty contemporary space, and her house is from the mid-'80s, so maybe the hardest part, I think, was kind of meshing the whole entry hallway and that bar area together with the kitchen. Just based on what the style of her cabinets are and kind of the monotone color that is on the floor finish and the cabinet finish and things like that, the painted red trim. But I think it ended up turning out pretty nice.
The initial problem is like deciding on a roof shape, because it's got to shed water and do all that, and you know,
not be too tall, not be too
it's got to look
massive.
Interesting from both sides of the house. And you know, we were kind of standing in the backyard and start framing a roof, and you're like, wouldn't that be cool if that were just a glowing box kind of sticking out of the corner? But you know, that led into the whole remodel of that corridor between the garage and house, which is where we have all the light passing through. It led into the kitchen. So it really became the main entrance when it wasn't the main entrance of the house, but it is now. It's a big feature of the whole character of the project.
Let's talk a little bit about the materials that you use. We were talking about seamlessly connecting the new space to the old. You've done that great. I mean, if you stand in the backyard and look at the space, it looks like it belongs here. But there's a unique element